Through the First Republic, 1960 to 1978 to be specific, Nigerians sang a different anthem. In 1978, during General Olusegun Obasanjo's regime, Nigeria updated her anthem to what we have today, Arise O Compatriots. Singing Arise O Compatriots for 38 years has barely seen the rise of true compatriots, noble statesmen or enviable nationhood. The Nigeria we are today is still a far cry from the Nigeria we want to be tomorrow. But just how many Nigerians know the Nigeria they want to be in? Is there a Nigerian promise, a Nigerian vision, or a Nigerian dream? Today on the Osasu show, we will explore the Nigeria we currently are and discuss ways we can bridge the gap in becoming the Nigeria we want to be, say 10 years from now. Stay tuned for this exclusive episode of the Osasu show. My name is Osasu Nigerian and I am your host. Welcome back to today's episode. With me right now is Dr. Femi Olufemilade, who is the head of Department International Relations and Strategic Studies at Nigerian University, Okada in Edo State. Thank you so much for joining us in today's program.
Thank you for inviting me.
The pleasure is mine. So our focus today is the Nigeria we are versus the Nigeria we want to be. Given your experience with international policies and strategic development across Africa, can you tell me what is the current state of the Nigerian development process?
Well, the state we are in right now is what I'll call a state of reinvention. For a very long time, we lived in what I will not hesitate to call a fool's paradise. We ran a monocultural economy depending on just one commodity, oil, which we know over time fluctuates in price in the international market. And in spite of that, we pay lip service to diversification of the economy. But nothing concrete is done. Each administration that comes pay lip service to diversifying the economy. They will talk of industrialization, they will talk of mechanizing agriculture and all that. But at the end of the day, you discover that the budget is still dependent on oil for its funding, sometimes as high as 90% of total revenues expected to fund a budget comes from oil. And the chickens have come home to roost. And we have a situation where we find it extremely difficult to even meet our routine obligations in terms of paying salaries to workers and all that. And everybody is in a frenzy, you know, but it's also an opportunity for us, and that's why I use the term reinvention. Now we have to learn the hard way. We have to find a way forward. We can't go borrowing to pay staff salaries, to build roads, and do all sorts of things. So it's a time when we have to rethink and reinvent our paradigms, our approach to doing things. The things we import, are they absolutely necessary? Importing toothpicks, importing wine, and then start thinking of how we can do these things ourselves rather than just merely paying lip service to them. And
definitely. And I like the fact that you talked about the dependency on oil. So previously, Nigeria's 90% of the budget was funded by oil. But then again, we look at currently, as of August 19, 2016, our foreign reserves were about $25 billion, compared to Saudi Arabia, who has maybe 1/5 of the Nigerian population with over $600 billion in its foreign reserves, and they also have a dependency, high-level dependency on oil. So how do we kind of, put that into perspective and compare both countries? What are we doing wrong? Why are our foreign reserves depleted? And why do we look at a country like Saudi Arabia, who has how many times more than what we have in our foreign reserves, without sustainable infrastructure to show for it?
Well, it's no news to say that the bane of Nigeria's fiscal system has been corruption. A lot of receipts that should be accruing to this country through the only commodity we depend on, oil, is routinely looted. The case of the Dasuki Gate is still fresh, but that is just symptomatic of a bigger malaise. All sorts of irresponsibility financially happen, and that is essentially what has brought us to where we are.
And
if we had been
speaking
prudent,
about corruption and curbing corruption, because obviously we know that's really the rut and what's causing our system to decay. But you've been a huge advocate of President Muhammadu Buhari. You were a member of the CPC, then you became a member of the APC, and you've published several articles, Buhari for President. You believe in the Buharism, Buhari economics, and all of that good stuff. So the president has made some efforts to fight corruption and to bring people in the past administration who were accused and found guilty of corruption to books. But currently our economy, they just recently announced, the Minister of Finance and the Governor of Central Bank, that Nigeria is officially in a recession. Do you believe that the president is doing enough work to help the economy of Nigeria?
Well, a Yoruba adage says that when a child trips and finds himself on the ground, he will look ahead. But when an elderly person falls, he will look backward, and that is to see what brought me here, what brought me down. What Buhari is doing does not need an economist of high repute to understand. Corruption is one major reason why we find ourselves where we are. If you have very sound economic policies and you have an efficient revenue collection system, and at the end of the day, money budgeted for this and that are looted, you will be on the same spot. So the first thing Buhari promised Nigerians is anti-corruption. And that is, I will make your money, whatever the quantum of it, to work for you. And I believe he's serious about that. And the evidence of that is in the renewed vigor, of the anti-graft agencies in doing their work, EFCC, ICPC, Code of Conduct Tribunal, and all that. When we have a regime of financial discipline, of probity in public life, the economy will pick up. In fact, the foreign investors, they don't like operating in an environment that is riddled with corruption, where the cost of doing business is unpredictable. You just do your feasibility, you want to embark on producing batteries, but you never budgeted for lining the pockets of various levels and layers of officials that are going to be extorting you. Mm-hmm. So what he is doing is salutary for the economy. And aside that, you also see that there is a lot of cost-cutting mechanisms. In the budget that goes into organizing training, arranging training to Dubai, training in Germany and all that, across the various MDAs, either two, if you merge them together, is greater than the budget of a number of West African countries alone. And that is why the present Minister of Finance has introduced what you call the efficiency unit in the Ministry of Finance, whereby if you want to organize training, for instance, the kind of brochure you will even use must be just black and white. They don't want any color. You might think, oh, how much will that save? But if you are not cover-wise, you will be neither foolish. So that is another thing that is doing that is right. And of course, we need to produce things. This is a typical example of a country that produces what, doesn't produce what it needs. Most of what it needs, it can't produce. Not that it doesn't have the capacity to produce them, but we just are lazy. And the government has been irresponsible. But the Buhari's government is serious about agriculture, for instance. And you see the Minister of Agriculture, it just came out with a document called the Green Alternative. That is a roadmap on the transformation of the agri sector. They are focusing rice production, and it's not just anybody who is interested in agriculture now. This is your season. A lot of financial incentives are being put in place, and I think these efforts will take time because you cannot pull down a house in 3 days and expect to rebuild it in 3 days. Mm-hmm. The pains we are going through, they are indeed painful, but we shouldn't be too surprised that we are feeling these pains.
But do you think that the present administration has nothing to do with the economic situation we're in right now? Do you attribute all the economic recession, the economic state of the country today solely to past administrations? Do you believe that the policies of this administration are helping to create a more buoyant economy?
Well, I went through the dailies today and I found in one of them where someone is saying that the government should pump money into the economy. And I think that is what is being done. Now, you see, I traveled through Lagos Benin Expressway sometime last week, and I found that a lot of progress is there, in terms of the contractors have moved back to site, they are working. You have a lot of people earning their daily bread through that as food vendors, as suppliers of sand, suppliers of other materials needed for road construction. And the same thing is happening in other sectors gradually. But of course, we can only spend what we have now. I believe the administration is doing the right things, and it has not added to our woes in any way. Even though you have those who don't forget that in most of these condemnations of what the government is not doing right, the voice of the opposition is not there. It's also there. The voice of the opposition is there.
But the voice of the common man is predominant. People on the streets are complaining. Yeah, people in the villages, people who are not practicing, have nothing to do with politics.
Let me give you an illustration of myself. About 2 years ago, I like going to the United States because I have professional colleagues there at George Mason University, East Carolina University, and the Brookings Institution in Washington. And it enriches me intellectually. I get new books, a lot of books sometimes are given to me almost gratis at Brookings. But this year I've been able to go to US only once. I managed to go in June, and that was largely because I also wanted to do a check on my health. And a friend had to assist me to go. So why is it so difficult for me? Is the cost of the exchange rate. But I can't blame President Buhari for that because I understood that income from oil, our main source of dollars, has drastically fallen from about $140 per barrel of oil to something almost dragging below 30. And it's what the federal government has been the main source of foreign exchange even for the private sector. We never really had a private sector that brings in foreign exchange. Everybody is dependent on that. So when you have less supply of an item, you should expect that the price of that item will go up. It's a basic economic law, and that will bring hardship inevitably to to those of you who depend on that item for your survival.
But the government has also talked about creating an enabling environment for foreign direct investment in our country. But the issue of fighting corruption is just one of them. We also have to look at the issue of security, creating an enabling environment where international investors can come in here and thrive. They can bring in dollars for foreign investments to the country to boost our economy. So what exactly can you say? I know you're not the mouthpiece of the government. So I would like to hear your thoughts on this. So what exactly can you say that we can do better to create an enabling environment in line with our topic today, the Nigeria we are versus the Nigeria we want to be?
Well, there is a lot that can still be done in terms of turning things around in this country. President Buhari, well, you know, one of the things that made me to become a Buhari advocate is the fact that he was a no-nonsense leader as a head of state. When he was head of state, I visited Lagos, for instance, which used to be a very rowdy place. And I was shocked to find people queuing for buses that were yet to arrive. Nobody was struggling to enter buses. People would queue and enter it in our orderly version. And then the streets were very clean. I didn't see any ponds, and I was wondering what happened. Ibadan, where I was resident then, I used to describe it as, because in geography class they told us it was the biggest city in West Africa. So I used to say it's the biggest and the dirtiest city in West Africa. Ibadan was very clean too. What did the magic then was also a function of the kind of regime in which President Buhari was functioning. He was a military head of state. His word was law. He wanted discipline, and you just have to be disciplined. But now President Buhari is a military head of state.
No.
He's a civilian head of state. He's a civilian president. And he has to go through a lot of procedures and all that. Presently, he's slow in doing a number of things that will help the economy. But that is also because he can no longer run things by decree. President Yemi Osinbajo recently pointed out that they are sending a bill to the National Assembly to streamline a number of, for what some have termed economic emergency. For instance, you cannot award some contracts until you have a cycle of about 6 months. And it doesn't really, it's uncalled for, but it's in the law. So these are some of the things that are holding his hands that make him look like he is slow. But having said that, he needs to speed up because he's into his second year. I personally am not enjoying the slowness with which he appointed his ministers, the delay in the budget. That is not altogether his fault. But either by accident or design, a number of things don't happen in this administration until they have suffered some delays. And we need to understand that people want results urgently. So he needs to sit down and see how he can accelerate the pace of policy formulation and the pace of policy implementation.
Lastly, Dr. Femi, can you tell us what's your ideal Nigeria? 10 years from now, what do you envision Nigeria will be like?
10 years from now, I want a Nigeria that is self-sufficient in most of its basic needs. Food, domestic amenities, infrastructure, good roads, stable electricity, robust security system. That is the kind of Nigeria I envisage. And I want a Nigeria that will de-emphasize state, ethnicity, and religion. And one of the things that is uppermost in my mind that I'm thinking I will push is for us to have a legislation that gives you all the right to claim a state if you have stayed there for 5 years, as is the case, I think, in a place like the United States, so that I want a Shinedu who has been in Lagos. He was born there, and then he's still seen as a foreigner. He's uncalled for. He should be able to rise to any level within that state without any let of hindrance. It's happening already. We have about 4 or 5 Igbo persons who won on the platform of some parties, and they are in the National Assembly. But I want a situation where someone in Kano, when he's filling a form for admission, a child born in Kano, and they put your state of origin, he is from my state, Ogun. But because he grew up there, or he has spent 5 years there, his parents are paying their taxes there, they are contributing to the economy of Kano, will be able to write Kano State if he so chooses. That is the kind of Nigeria I want. And I want a Nigeria that will be respected globally the way it used to be. Before, my dad was in charge of passages at University of Ife, where he worked. He told me in those days, nothing like visa going to the United Kingdom. But today, the visas the UK issues, it's like a money-making venture for them. And we are still going there, patronizing them. I want in Nigeria that when you go abroad, you are respected. Oh, this is a Nigeria. You get your respect. And all this can be done. And I wrote a book. It's titled China's Economic Miracle, Lessons of Deng Xiaoping Development Strategies for Africa. I dedicated it last year to President Buhari's victory. Within a pace of 10 years of reforms, beginning from 1978, after Mao's death, and Deng Xiaoping took over as the paramount ruler of China, China was able to feed itself robustly. It was a starving nation before. 2 decades thereafter, China was able to meet its own needs in basic goods like clothing and all the rest of it, and indeed began to export footwears and all that. 3 decades after, 3 decades plus thereafter, China has become the second largest economy in the world that runs a deficit of about 300 billion against the United States in trade. It enjoys about 300 billion worth of surplus annually. A China that now has over 4 trillion US dollars in foreign reserves and is still growing and waxing stronger. So with sound planning, we need long-term planning. We need plans that can be backed with legislation and that serious-minded leaders will come and implement. The modern economic management is scientific. You can decide where Nigeria will be in 5 years, in 10 years, in 15 years. I have all the Chinese plans, and they are a great inspiration to me.
I completely agree with you, Doctor. I think planning is definitely necessary. Any country that wants to be taken seriously needs to plan. We need to have a national development plan that we follow through. Not when a new government comes into power, they completely stop and halt all the progress that has been made by the past administration to implement new ones. So thank you so much for coming on the program today.
Thank you so much.
To read my article about the Nigeria we are versus the Nigeria we want to be, you can visit my website, theosasushow.com, or my personal website, osasuigmenedion.com. To find out more news on sustainable development and current affairs in Africa, you could also visit the website and follow us on social media at The Osasu Show and at Osasu Igbenedion on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. I'll see you same time, same place next week, and until then, take very good care of yourself. Do you believe citizens should take the laws into their own hands?
No, it is not taking the laws into their own hands.
Your Excellency, but do you agree that there were accusations that you made during the campaign that were not necessarily founded?
Me?
Yes. If the party doesn't have a direct influence over the legislative arm of government, how come the party held a primary election? Senate?
The party provided the platform only.
I actually disagree with you, Senator. I think draconian laws would affect more so the masses, the people who do not even have to begin with. What do they call the incident of October 2006?
No impeachment. That's they call it rascality.
Rascality.